So I have the great privilege of introducing our keynote interview with Marc Benioff and Swisher. Marc Benioff is the CEO and chairman of a company you may have heard of, Salesforce. He was a huge part of something called the cloud. I know some of you still haven't heard of it, but I have a diagram. We can have a cocktail, go over it. It's fine. You're fine. I also heard he's a big fan of Hawaiian shirts, which pretty much means he's already a lesbian, so we're good. We're good there. And obviously, Swisher, she's an incredible entrepreneur, journalist, and I heard that she's actually a lesbian. It's crazy. And she's had a pretty big week. I know you've been on the Twitter, but she's interviewed Obama recently, Hillary, and now she's at Lesbians Who Tech, so she clearly saved the best for last, clearly, with us today. So we're going to do one more. This is my favorite thing ever. So one more. Stand up, everybody. We're going to do a slow clap again, bringing them to the stage. Ready? All right, Marc and Kara, let's do this.
Thank you.
Of course, thanks for being here.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Okay.
So I'm very excited to bring Marc. Come on, Marc, don't be scared. Last time,
Kara.
I've already done all the presidents. Now sit down, you'll be fine.
I know. You did. You had Obama, you had Hillary. Am I a huge downgrade for you? Is this...
Do you want me to be honest?
Sure. I'm honest.
Absolutely.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I knew
Come on. Hillary, they were both good, but I have to say Hillary was quite rockin'. She came to play, so I hope you have. So last time I interviewed
You think we're going to have a women president on our hands?
On our hands? Yes. I mean, yes, I think so. I think she looks pretty good. She looks fit and ready to go and seemed to be excited about running. Are you, what are you, a Democrat or a Republican?
I'm not a Democrat or a Republican. I'm an American.
Oh, all right, nice. Okay. So,
I did have a really interesting observation about Hillary, which was that a year ago we had her speak to our management team, and then we had her to Dreamforce to speak. I know you couldn't make it; you had something to do.
Yeah.
But
well, you also didn't pay me hundreds of thousands of dollars. But
well, okay. Now we know how to get your attention.
Exactly.
So, but this has really only happened one other time, which is that when she came on stage with our management team, and when she came to Dreamforce, it was people spontaneously stood up and applauded her as if she was a hero. You know, she was already the president. That kind of experience. And the only time that had ever happened at Dreamforce or any other event I'd ever been at was with Colin Powell. Oh. So that was like a very. I put that in my back of my head, and I'm like, wow, she's extremely. Special. She
is. She's really interesting. I think she's ready for it, and it's the right time, probably. But today at this CPAC, I don't know if you guys have been following the conservative conference like I do, but they were calling her history, which was interesting. I was on TV today, and I was thinking they were acting like they were 12. But it'll be a great election. It'll be in any case. So let's talk about you. Let's not talk about Hillary. Let's talk about you. Okay. So last time I interviewed Marc, it was on the stage of my conference.
Yes.
And
it went very well.
It went very well. I thought it didn't go very well because you attacked me mercilessly on stage
I would never do
for not being as charitable as I should be. But now I have like a pack of friggin' lesbians behind me. So,
they cannot save you.
They can save me. Anyway, but what I do want to talk about was what we talked about. And we're going to talk about a range of things, diversity, the city, women in tech, and those issues. But let's talk about that concept, because you did, and I think I usually don't take shit from internet executives, but I deserve that shit that you gave me there. So talk to me a little bit about that.
You did deserve it.
I did, but I do give money to lesbians.
But did you make a change?
I gave more money to lesbians. I know you gave money to
lesbians, but that's not what we were really talking about at the event.
All right.
We don't have to go back into it.
No, I didn't change, because I like people in particular, but not in general.
The point I was making was, at the conference, we were at her conference, okay? And she does this fabulous, she has a new company, do you know that?
Yeah.
So she left the Wall Street Journal, she's a fantastic reporter, to become an entrepreneur. And so she has her own company, and how many employees do you have now?
Oh, depends, between 20 and 30.
20 or 30 employees, very exciting. So she's got her startup, it's underway, she's got her products, her website, she's got other products, including the conference. So we're at the conference, and the conference is called Recode.
Right,
okay.
Code, yes.
So, oh, it's the Code Conference.
Right.
It's the Code Conference. So the company's called Recode? What is it? Okay, we're not going to go into it. Okay. She's not going to tell us what the company's called. It's too confidential.
It's called Revere. It's called Revere Digital because we were escaping Rupert Murdoch. But go ahead.
Okay. And you need to be escaping Rupert Murdoch.
Revere, Paul Revere, the British.
Okay. All right. Great. So we're talking about that, and so we're at the Code Conference, and I'm like, well, obviously, you know, you have Hadi Partovi on stage. He's doing code.org. He's, you know, educating, you know, millions of kids all over the world on how to code. And so I said, well, you know, I guess you're going to give a percentage of the conference proceeds or profits to code.org. And you said no, because you said I give money to lesbians.
Yes, I did. I stand by that decision still to this day. But let's talk about the idea of charitable giving first, and then let's move into diversity, because you have been very active, and laudably so, in the city around charitable giving. You've been pushing internet executives, digital executives to do it as these companies grow in San Francisco. There's been a lot of fighting between issues and controversies over these companies moving in and not giving back. Talk a little bit about why you're so aggressive in that. And you've given a ton of money to hospitals, things like that.
I was just at the new hospital 5 minutes ago, which is something to see. If you haven't been down to Mission Bay, it's really worth going in and checking it out. So, you know, how many people here live in San Francisco? Raise your hands. Okay, so, you know, we live in a nirvana. You know, this is a great city. It's amazing here. We have, you know, it's beautiful vistas, great people, great culture. We have great diversity. We have great history. You know, we have of course, we have great gay rights, summer of love. You know, we have you go back, you know, we had the gold rush. We have started some great companies here like Levi Strauss and Wells Fargo. And we have great infrastructure and public transportation, and it's just we have a great city. And we all know that. Everyone who lives here knows that. So now we have this thing happening here. And the thing that's happening is it's kind of a second gold rush, which is that all these tech companies are emerging, and they're not starting down in Sunnyvale or Cupertino or San Mateo. They're starting here in San Francisco. And it's been great for the city, in my opinion. You know, it's great for, certainly it's been great for unemployment, which is kind of at a record low. It's been a tough situation for housing, okay? But it's been great for the city. And my message to the entrepreneurs, which I have an opportunity to address them on a semi-regular basis, is, look, you're going to build a great product, you're going to build a great company, okay? And this is kind of my message to you too. Don't forget about helping other people as you go, because these companies are very powerful things. They're incredible. You know, you spend a lot of time attracting and recruiting and bringing in all these great people into your organization, and you want to do something meaningful with them. And I had this revelation now 20 years ago, but the day we started Salesforce, I already knew I wanted to make sure that we had integrated philanthropy into it. I knew that we wanted to have giving as part of what we did, because I really think that technology itself is somewhat transient, okay? That is, the products are constantly going to be obsoleted, all right? But this concept, the culture, is really not transient. The culture and this concept of giving back. So if I can inspire people like you, you know, entrepreneurs, just by asking the question, which is, what are you going to do to help other people through your company? Right. I know individually, for example, you're giving to lesbians, but in your company, what will your company be known for?
Why do you think the tech industry is so inward focused? I mean, do you think it is, or it seems to be very interested in itself. They build these beautiful headquarters. They sort of keep people out. Why is that? Is it because of the juvenilia of sort of the male Uber culture, or? That's pretty much, and
We can go into that.
okay, let's go.
You know, I think that number one is we have a history of stinginess. And I think we just have, it's just in our history, we don't have a moment in time where companies kind of had a revelation that they can do more than just build technology. They've got all this great resource. We have partnerships, customer relationships, employees I mentioned, you have equity, you have all these things that you can tap into to give back. But they don't do it. So why is it? And I think if you just ask the question of these entrepreneurs, so many of them are great people that they will say, oh, I can do that. That's easy for me to do.
But why don't they do it now?
I think more and more of them are. Well, more are than ever before.
Right.
I mean, it's empirical.
Right.
So you do have a wave of tsunami happening right now in San Francisco, which is very cool, actually. You know, when I did the first $100 million donation, which is just 5 years ago, and when we started Salesforce 16 years ago, there weren't a lot of other examples. Today, I don't need to be the one on stage talking about the examples. There are so many examples of companies who are doing integrated philanthropy. That is, they're into volunteerism and they're into giving back. And there's a lot of great examples of personal philanthropy.
Right. So let's talk about the tech culture right now. Right now, I just came from the Kleiner Perkins Ellen Pao trial. There's been lots of instances this year of issues around diversity or lack thereof. A lot of the companies have put out their statistics. It's mostly white dudes, essentially. Sure. And, you know, they have a sprinkling of Asians, a sprinkling of Indians, much lower numbers of women. Probably, you could go down, Hispanics, African Americans. Why does that persist? How do you change something like Intel just gave $300 million for issues of diversity, especially around women, to get them in the pipeline? Where do you think the problem lies?
I really think it's a crisis of prioritization, and that's really how I look at it. And number one, it's a super hard problem, okay? And when I look back 16 years ago, I'm constantly looking at, okay, for Salesforce, how can we get more and more women to take on technical positions, management positions, leadership positions, and move women up? And it's not easy. I would say that one of the things that, you know, we've seen Cheryl's book and so forth, but it's more than just women leaning in, okay?
I agree.
It's also,
yeah.
Okay.
I always say, it's
yeah.
interesting because it does put the onus on women, and I always say, I lean in and fall over. So it's an old joke. Cheryl's like, stop telling that joke. I'm like, no, it works every time, Cheryl. But it's true. It's like the onus is on women to do that.
It's not just on, the onus is not just on women. And I'll tell you how I look at it, which is that it's really all about the culture. And it's all, and that kind of gets back to your trial issue that you've been talking about, this trial, writing about the trial. You know, when you're starting out and you're the CEO of a company and you're a founder of a company and you're going to start the company, what are you doing at the very, very beginning of the beginning? You have a beginner's mind at that point, and you know that's what you never want to lose as a CEO or as an entrepreneur. You want to maintain that beginner's mind. But when you have that beginner's mind, you have that envelope of all possibilities. The total availability of creation is in front of you. Now you can choose what kind of company do you want to create. And I really think what you're saying, and I think that what the industry is saying is, and it kind of gets back to my philanthropy point, just as what I'm saying, the question is, what are you going to do to give back? What are you going to do to support women and to make sure you have balanced male and female ratios in management and in technical positions in all these areas? And I think that if you're an entrepreneur and you're a leader and you start with that intention, you're going to have a great outcome. It's much harder if all of a sudden in the middle of the cycle you add that into your culture. One of the things that I've been doing in the last few years is something called the Women's Surge. And you know, my assistant is here, and when I am working on a management meeting of my top, we just did a meeting last week of our top 1,300 managers, you know, we'll set it up, and we don't have the ultimate ratios that we want.
Right.
We know that we need to bring women up. So we will then surge women into the meeting. And what that means is we will then go back out to our
Use
managers.
the word surge? It sounds like a feminine protection thing, but go ahead. I like it, though. I like it. Sorry, Mark, I had to. Sorry.
I can use any word you want.
Okay, I like it. Go for
Okay.
it. Go for it.
So, but this is the way I've been doing it is I will go out and then I will say to those managers, now I want you to go invite all of your most high potential female executives into the meeting as well.
So they're part of it.
Until we can get to the percentages that we're looking for, we go, we want to get to every meeting to be between a third and a half women, right? And if we don't have that, then we know we're
So you're making a conscious effort to do that.
I think you have, that's my point. You have to do that.
One of the words that people use right now is unconscious bias. That's the word they're using. I say it's an excuse of being lazy and stupid, but the idea is we don't mean it. We don't mean the board of Twitter to have 10 white men on it. It just happened that way.
Right.
Or we don't mean that these, especially boards.
No, that's just a really good point. Like boards are much easier than
Right.
employee. Boards are relatively small groups, so it's much easier to say, oh, I want to have, this many more people in my board who are women.
What happens in the entrepreneurial effort where they don't think, I do think a lot of it is thoughtlessness or lack of considering the issues or looking around the table. I mean, years ago I did a story called The Men and No Women of Facebook. This is before Cheryl got there, and she counts for 63 women. But she was, I just put their pictures up, and I just said, here's the photos, here's what jobs they have. It was all men, an Asian guy, and an Indian guy, pretty much. But all white men, essentially. And I remember Mark or someone said, that's really unfair. And I said, no, I'm just showing people what your management looks like.
Right.
So why are you embarrassed of that if that's what you intended?
Right. Well, I think that's the point. I think that what the first point you made actually is the real point, which is, and it gets back to my first comment, which they're just not asking the question. And I think that it's kind of, with a lot of these young entrepreneurs, and I'll get to them, and on the philanthropy thing, I'll get, it's just not in their consciousness, and I will have to beat on them for years until they don't want to really have me to their parties anymore.
Right.
Because they know I'm going to say to them, well,
what are you doing?
What are you doing?
What are you doing?
Do you have in your Paul Revere thing, your volunteerism thing worked out?
Right.
Well, no, but I'm doing this.
Right.
And I think that it's very much that way. And I think that, you kind of look at it, you're starting out, you're an entrepreneur, you're creating a company, and you're insecure. Is it going to fail? Is it going to succeed? What's going to happen? I'm getting this money. Oh my gosh, you have a lot of anxiety. What's happening? And those questions might not be on your mind.
Right.
You might be so singularly focused on, I just need to build this one product and that's how I'm going to be successful.
Right.
That you don't realize that ultimately being successful is going to be a lot more than just one product.
What do you think, two things, because we've just got a little bit more time. What do you think the problem is? Is there not enough women in the pipeline in STEM? Do we have to give more government money to this to get more diverse workforces? In the one industry, when I interviewed Hillary, she said this, it's like, this is the most fast-forward industry we have, and the numbers of women, at least, have declined precipitously. Where do you think the problem is? And then, if you could talk a little bit about some of the solutions, and then I'd love it if you gave some tips here to the lesbians who tech, like the important things you think are important right now. So let's start with the idea of where you think the problem is.
Where do I think the problem is? I think that the problem is right down at right down in the family, where you need to introduce your kids to technology, and you need to say, here's technology, and here's the opportunity. There's some great organizations. We talked about code.org. Every child in the San Francisco Unified School District, whether they're a female child or a male child, are going to get exposure to coding, and a lot of exposure to coding based on that. You're going to have great organizations emerge. You see Girls Who Code, Black Women Who Code, every slice of society. Those are great organizations. Those need to be fueled. And I think that you also have to put the onus back onto the CEOs, because I think they has to get back to the leaders and saying, you have to do this. You have to raise women up. And it's all those things working together.
So what advice would you give to this group of women here who are technical? You know, everyone says there's not technical, it's hard to find them. What are some of the, again, when this trial was going on, it was all about...
How many people here are coders? Raise your hand. Yeah, so quite a few. That's great.
So code?
Yeah.
What else? What else would you...
I think learning to code is really important. I think even if you don't want to be a coder, I think knowing how computers work, it's really important. I think it just helps you in the technology industry. That's what, you know, when I was I went to high school about 15 miles from here in Burlingame High School. When I was, 13 or 14 years old, I walked into a room where there were 4 or 5 terminals connected to a mainframe. It was 1978, 1977. And I kind of taught myself how to code. I got lucky that I found that terminal. I got lucky that I figured out how to program in BASIC. I went to Radio Shack. I bought a Model 1 computer for $500. I was able to do that. I was lucky to be able to learn some of those basics. And then I just had an intuitive sense of how to start writing software. When I was 14, 15, 16 years old, I started writing arcade games and adventure games for Atari and Apple computers, and it just came naturally to me. I never have had a computer science class. I've never really read a book on computer science, but I think understanding the basics of how computers work, that is the software and the hardware, is really important. I'm not technical on the hardware side. I was with Michael Dell yesterday, who's a good friend of mine. He can take a computer apart and put it back together. That's not my, intuitive nature.
It's not really a skill you need anymore, right? I guess.
Well, I don't think you should mention that to him.
I will, though. I will. So last question, where do you think technology is right now? I mean, this has been
actually some of the new things happening in hardware. If you saw that, like Raspberry Pi,
yes, absolutely,
and how cool that is.
But where do you imagine it is cool? A lot of these.
I think that's like.
Give me 3 important
I think
trends.
If I'm a parent, you want to go on Amazon and buy a Raspberry Pi for $30 and hand that to your daughter. Right. And say, I'm going to now work with you and teach you how this works.
Right.
I mean, right from the beginning, that's like the kind of thing where you can really make a big impact.
Right. So to finish up, I just want to get an idea of what you think, where we are in tech right now, just sort of the big Marc visionary thing.
We're at the most exciting point ever.
Because?
We are at the point where we've got 4 amazing trends happening all simultaneously. That is, we have, as you mentioned earlier, with the cloud is happening. We have, which is, all about kind of the evolution of systems of record. That is, systems of record were kind of on mainframes, and systems of record were on, on mini computers. They were on client server systems, and now the idea was make them lower cost and easier to use. And systems of record are now in the cloud. But then all of a sudden we have social networks. We didn't really have a name for it, but it's a system of engagement. And systems of record and systems of engagement are starting to get coupled together, and that's super exciting. Of course, we have mobility, which means that everybody's got it in their pocket. Everybody here has probably at least 1 smartphone with them. How many people have 2 smartphones with them? And there's a special session for all of you later. And then the 4th thing that's happening is we have a system of intelligence, which will be kind of the 3rd wave of computing that we're moving into. And that, when we see systems of record, systems of engagement, and systems of intelligence all working together, then whether it's for you personally or whether it's going to be for your business, well, that's a transformation. And we're right in the middle of everything.
Are you nervous at all about those systems of intelligence, Elon Musk and others?
Well, you had the line, right? You had the funniest line.
Which was what?
You said...
Okay. I have lots of funny lines.
You do have a lot of funny lines.
I'll tell you my Apple joke later. Do you want to hear it?
Let's hear it now.
I've told it before, but if you haven't heard it, you know that Apple's run by men when they create the iPhone 6 Plus and it's 5.5 inches. That was from my son, came up with that one. So
very nice.
He's good with a penis joke. Anyway,
nice.
Go ahead, son. What did I say that was
Are there
funny?
any other jokes you want to tell?
No, that's enough for today.
So, But you said it's all funny until they kill us.
Right, exactly. Yes, it's all fun and games until they eat us. I think that was what I said.
And what did that mean?
Well, I think I was making a joke about Google. Megan's not there anymore, so I can make as money as I want now. But I said Google back in 2012, which irritated Eric Schmidt. I said Google's going to become self-aware and start killing the human race. And they were like, ha ha, and I'm like, no, it's the Terminator. We are in the Terminator movie right now, and Schwarzenegger's somewhere in this theater about to kill me. But I am worried about those things. It's going to be all fun and games until they start killing us. Yes, I agree with that. How do you think about that?
Well, I was with somebody, I won't tell you who it is, but as a CEO that you'd all know. And we're at dinner and they said to me, well, do you think this is just all a simulation? Oh. And I'm like, oh gosh, are we just, I don't know.
Yeah.
But, I think that
what did you answer?
I'm like, I have no idea.
Okay.
But I think that...
You're not the hero of the movie then if you have no idea, but go ahead.
Yeah. But what I do think is that, we are on a very fast track on technology, and I think the way to look at it is we're in 2015, right? And you can look backwards 100 years, to 1915 at technology, and you can look forward 100 years to 2115. And I think if you just look at the basic trends in technology, there are a lot of very scary things that are kind of all happening at once. And now they could be turned into very positive things. That is definitely a possibility, and we need to keep a positive intention that those new technologies will have a positive impact on all of us and our environment as well, because certainly our environment is also something that needs a lot of support. But there's a lot of things that are going on out there that are troubling, and that we all need to be conscious of and aware of, whether it's artificial intelligence, whether it's synthetic biology, whether it's rapid advancements in computing and the network itself. And that's kind of where I think we are in the state of the world, which is that it's more important than ever to have dialogue, why I think conferences like this are extremely important, or your conference as well. I think it's also really important that we start to discuss the ethical and moral implications of a lot of this technology.
Last two very quick questions, so we're going over time. One, what do you think the single most important thing technology can do?
This is great. This was a lot faster than I thought it would be.
Good, okay, good. We'll meet again, Marc Benioff.
I'll be back.
I'll be back. I'll be back, that's right. What's the two things, I'm going to ask you the question I asked the President and Secretary Clinton at the end, but what's the single most important thing tech can deal with? Because it's always in my contention that Silicon Valley, there's a lot of big minds chasing small ideas a lot of the time, a photo app or whatever. And so what do you imagine the big thing technology should take on? Just one single thing.
One single thing that technology should take on is the environment. I think that we're in a moment in time on the environment, and I was just reading about all the plastic that's in the ocean.
Yeah, I know. That's always a depressing story, isn't it? Yeah.
Well,
it is. They do it. They drag it out every year.
And it's getting worse.
It is.
And you're going to end up with 15 bags of plastic per every foot of shoreline, in the world. 90% of the big fish are gone.
Let me just do something with this.
There's a lot of issues.
Sorry.
A lot of things going on, in the ocean, and those are a lot of things actually that we can actually use technology to solve.
Right.
That there's things that we can do with technology, and when I think about my life every day, one of the things I think about is, okay, I'm running this company, so it's all consuming when you're running a company. Mm-hmm. I'm like, whoa, I should really just be using my leadership skills over here. I should be using my leadership skills over here. But that's one of the things I look out, we live in San Francisco, we look out on the ocean or the bay every single day, most of us. We should be thinking about how do we make that, ocean as healthy as possible using all this great technology that we have, and it's 100% possible.
Okay, so last question, very quick. If you had to have and I asked this of President Obama and Secretary Clinton, if you had to have a hashtag for the next couple of years of your life, what would it be?
If I had a hashtag for the next couple of years of my life, it would be pound Kara's company needs to adopt the 111.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you. Thank you.
Good to see you. Thank you.